didn't run like Lamar or sling it like Mahomes, but for nearly a decade, Derek Carr battled through injuries, chaos, and a franchise that never backed him. He led comebacks, broke records, and played through pain, only to be blamed, benched, and forgotten. So how does a quarterback who gave everything get tossed aside like he was never part of the plan, then retire out of nowhere? To understand just how tragic the career of Derek Carr truly was, we need to go back to where it all started. Coming out of high school, Carr was a 4-star recruit and the number 26th ranked quarterback in the nation. His older brother David was selected number 1 overall in 2002 by the Houston Texans for their first ever draft pick in history. So yeah, expectations were pretty high for Derek. Despite receiving offers from schools like UCLA, Boise State, and Utah, Derek decided to follow his brother's footsteps, committing to Fresno State, saying, quote, "I'm going there to finish what David started." As a freshman, he played limited snaps, then redshirted the following year. He used that time to bulk up, watch film, and get ready for the moment when the team would be his. And by 2011, it was. From the jump, Carr looked sharp. He threw for over 3,500 yards and 26 touchdowns in his first full season as a starter. But what really stood out was the leadership. You could see it in the huddle, in post-game interviews, in how his teammates talked about him. However, heading into his junior year, there was a problem. Longtime head coach Pat Hill was fired, meaning Carr would have to learn an entirely new system. But he didn't let that slow him down. Under new head coach Tim DeRuyter, the offense turned into a full-on air raid. Carr racked up over 4,100 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, led the Bulldogs to a 9-4 record, and was named Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year. But that was just the warm-up. In 2013, Carr threw for 5,083 yards and a nation-leading 50 touchdowns as he led Fresno State to an 11-2 record, a conference title, and a national ranking for the first time in over a decade. His connection with future NFL superstar wide receiver Davante Adams was unstoppable. In a game against New Mexico, Carr threw for 522 yards and 7 touchdowns. 198 yards and 2 of those touchdowns were to Adams. That year, Carr was a Heisman finalist, a top NFL prospect, and Fresno State's most exciting player since, well, ever. But of course, there were still doubters. People questioned the competition he played against, said his numbers were inflated because of the system he played in, claimed he couldn't handle the pressure or would flame out like his brother did. So when the NFL draft rolled around, Derek Carr waited all the way to the 36th pick where the Oakland Raiders made the call. When they drafted Carr, most people figured he'd sit behind veteran Matt Schwab for a while. You know, learn the playbook, adjust to the speed, ease into things, but that plan didn't even last a month. Carr came into training camp firing. By the final preseason game, he lit up the Seahawks for 3 touchdowns, and that was all head coach Dennis Allen needed to see. So Derek Carr was named the Week 1 starter, but early on, it was bad. Like, really bad. The team lost their first 10 games. They didn't have a strong offensive line. Their run game was stuck in the mud. Their best receiver was a 30-year-old James Jones, and the defense gave up points like it was their job. But in Week 12 on Thursday Night Football, Carr led a game-winning drive, capped off by a touchdown pass to James Jones with less than 2 minutes left to beat the division rival Kansas City Chiefs. Carr would finish his rookie season with 3,270 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Solid numbers, especially when you consider the lack of talent around him. But even more important than those stats, he earned respect. Veterans in the locker room believed in him. Coaches saw his potential, and fans who had been through years of pain finally had someone worth rooting for again. Sure, the Raiders finished 3-13, but Carr had given the franchise hope. Also guys, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is challenging industry norms and fixing what's broken in traditional wireless. They cut out the nonsense. No monthly bills, no overpaying for features you don't need, no BS, just premium service starting at $15 a month. I love Mint because they've reimagined the wireless shopping experience, making it easy and online. No stores, no salespeople. With Mint, you get premium wireless without the premium price tag. All plans include unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network, plus free calling to Mexico, Canada, and the UK. Also, did you know Mint introduced the concept of bulk buying to the wireless space? The more you buy up front, the more you save. Plans come in 3, 6, and 12-month durations. To switch, you can bring your old unlocked phone to Mint, or you can shop the latest phones in their store. No matter which route you take, you can keep your phone number and all your existing contacts when you switch. So yeah guys, switching is so easy. You can legit sign up and activate in minutes with eSIM from the comfort of your home. So click the link below. New customers can get their premium wireless plans that start at $15 a month. Terms and conditions apply. That offseason, the Raiders brought in a new head coach and then used their first round pick on wide receiver Amari Cooper. And from week 1, Carr looked different, more confident, more in control. In week 2, he threw 3 touchdowns and 0 picks in a wild win over the Ravens, including the game winner with under a minute left. By the end of the season, Carr threw for 3,987 yards, 32 touchdowns, and just 13 interceptions. And that 32 TD mark was the second most in Raiders franchise history at the time, only behind Daryl LaMonica's 34 back in 1969. But of course, this was still the Raiders. They weren't a playoff team yet. The defense was shaky, the offensive line was better, but it still had holes. The team finished 7-9. Not amazing, but it was the most wins they had had since 2011. But more importantly, they were finally headed in the right direction, and Derek Carr was at the center of it. To start the 2016 season, Carr found himself down 34-27 to Drew Brees and the Saints. But Derek did what he does best, leading the team down the field to score with under a minute on the clock. But instead of kicking the extra point, the Raiders decided to go for 2, and Carr once again converted. That moment defined the new Raiders for the rest of the season. Week after week, Carr put on a show. Late comebacks, overtime thrillers, fourth quarter daggers. It felt like every time the Raiders needed a play, Carr made it. In week 8, he threw for 513 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Buccaneers in an overtime win, the most passing yards in a single game in Raiders history. Carr was playing like an MVP. Literally, he came in 3rd place for the award that year. He finished the season with 3,937 yards, 28 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. But just when things reached their peak, tragedy struck. It was Christmas Eve. The Raiders were 12-3, one win away from locking up their first division title in over a decade. They were rolling through the Colts, up by 3 scores. Everything was going right until...
It's broke! It's broke! It's broke! It's broke!
Carr had fractured his fibula. Just like that, the season changed. The Raiders would go on to make the playoffs, but without Carr, they didn't stand a chance, losing to the Texans in the wild card round. But in 2017, Carr was back, healthy, motivated, and now one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the entire league with an $125 million contract. The team added Marshawn Lynch out of retirement, they had Pro Bowlers on both sides of the ball, and people were saying the Raiders could make a deep playoff run. But something felt off. Carr wasn't playing loose and confident like in 2016. He was playing safe, hesitant, and then it got worse. In week 4, Carr took another big hit and suffered a fractured bone in his back. He missed just 1 game, but after that, he never looked quite the same. Meanwhile, the defense was struggling too. They went an entire half of the season without recording a single interception. Carr fought through it, but the results just weren't there. He finished with 3,496 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions, as the Raiders finished 6-10, missing the playoffs entirely. The Raiders fired Jack Del Rio after the season, and went big when filling the vacancy, bringing back former Super Bowl champion head coach John Gruden on a massive 10-year deal, hoping he could be the one to save Carr. Instead, it was a disaster. Before the season even started, the team traded away their best player, Khalil Mack, a former Defensive Player of the Year. Carr struggled under Gruden's new system. The timing was off, the routes were different, and the pressure was constant. The offensive line was falling apart, and the Raiders couldn't run the ball to save their lives. Carr was taking hit after hit, and the turnovers started piling up. Midway through the season, it got even worse. The Raiders traded Amari Cooper to the Cowboys for a first-round pick, and just like that, Carr lost his #1 receiver. Derek was trying to hold the team together, but it was clear the Raiders weren't trying to win. Even with the chaos, Carr still played every game. He threw for a career-high 4,049 yards, but only 19 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. The Raiders finished the season 4-12, their worst record since Carr's rookie year. But if you thought things couldn't get any crazier, the Raiders made a massive splash during the offseason, trading for one of the biggest names in football, Antonio Brown. On paper, Derek Carr finally had a star receiver again. AB was still in his prime, coming off a 15-touchdown season in Pittsburgh. But Antonio Brown never played a snap for the Raiders. Before the season even started, he showed up late to camp, froze his feet in a cryo chamber, fought with the league about his helmet, recorded a private phone call with John Gruden, and eventually got released just days before Week 1. Once the season started, Carr racked up 4,054 yards, 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a career-best 70.4% completion rate. But the Raiders still finished 7-9. And with the team officially set to move to Las Vegas the upcoming season, the pressure was heavier than ever. And Carr came out swinging. He played with fire. He pushed the ball downfield more than he had in years, and with weapons like Darren Waller, Nelson Aguilar, and rookie speedster Henry Ruggs, the offense finally had some juice. In Week 5, he outdueled Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead, handing the Chiefs their only loss of the regular season. But here's the problem. The Raiders' defense was historically bad. They give up 30 or more points in 8 games. In Week 16 versus the Dolphins, Carr had just led a perfect 2-minute drill to take the lead 25-23 with only 19 seconds left. But the defense gave up a 34-yard bomb to Ryan Fitzpatrick while his helmet was being twisted sideways. Then the Dolphins kicked the game winner. Carr finished the year with 4,103 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and an 101.4 passer rating, one of the best statistical seasons of his entire career. And yet, the Raiders went 8-8, missing the playoffs again. But if Carr thought this was rough, he wasn't ready for 2021. In October 2021, John Gruden resigned after his leaked email scandal. Then in November, Henry Ruggs, the team's leading receiver, was arrested for DUI after a fatal crash. A few weeks later, Damon Arnett, a 2020 first-round pick, was released after flashing weapons and making threats in a viral video. Any one of those stories could have sunk a team, but somehow Derek Carr held them together. Carr finished the season with a career-high 4,804 passing yards, along with 23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and a couple late-game heroics. In Week 18, the Raiders were faced up against the Chargers in a do-or-die game. Win and you're in. The Chargers tied it late in the fourth quarter. Carr led a clutch drive in OT, and instead of playing for the tie, which would have sent both teams to the playoffs, Carr went for the win. After 8 years of criticism, dysfunction, and he's not that guy talk, he finally took the Raiders back to the postseason. But unfortunately, his run would end in the wildcard round to the Bengals. Heading into 2022, it seemed like things were only going to get better. The Raiders hired Josh McDaniels, a supposed offensive genius from New England, and then reunited Carr with his college teammate and close friend Davante Adams. The Raiders looked like a legit playoff contender, but instead, everything fell apart. The Raiders went 0-3 to start the season. They blew 3 17-point leads, the most ever by a team in 1 year. By Week 16, Carr was benched. And after the season, despite being a Pro Bowler, the Raiders officially cut him from the roster. But he was still a good quarterback, and the Saints gave him a 4-year, $150 million deal to come play for them. New Orleans had a strong defense, young weapons on offense, and were in a winnable NFC South division. This was supposed to be the comeback, the revenge tour, the you gave up on me too soon season. But instead, it was the beginning of the end. Carr didn't play well, and it didn't help that he was constantly banged up. Shoulder issues, back pain, and at one point a concussion. He played through most of it, but the injuries clearly affected his timing in deep ball. 2024 was more of the same. 2 concussions, fractured ribs, an oblique strain, a sprained AC joint, a fractured hand, you name it. But the Saints were ready to give him one last shot. That was until Derek Carr shocked the football world and announced his retirement. But why? Well, during offseason workouts, Carr started feeling deep, persistent discomfort in his right shoulder. Scans revealed the truth, a torn labrum combined with significant degenerative changes to his rotator cuff. And doctors made it clear if he kept playing, he risked permanent damage to his arm. At 34 years old, after 11 seasons with over 41,000 passing yards, 257 touchdowns, Derek Carr walked away from the game as the only QB in NFL history to pass for over 40,000 yards and never win a playoff game. Derek Carr had all the potential to be an NFL superstar, but injuries, coaching chaos, and a franchise that never gave him a real shot to win held him back. If you don't know the story of the greatest Saints quarterback ever and how he overcame being told he was too small to play in the NFL, check out this video up here.